Hello, Keith Jones.
Hello, Rick Stroh.
How are you, buddy?
Good, man. How you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
Good. I'm good.
Good, man. You look healthy and happy.
I'm both.
I love that, man.
What about you?
Same. Same thing. No complaints, man. Everything's cool.
Great, great. What's our topic for today?
You know, I thought we'd do something that's a little out of the ordinary, but I think it's very important, and that is the idea that it may be a truism in life that there are no free lunches. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And so what I mean by that is that everything has a cost, and you have to decide when you look at life and decide what choices you want to make to improve your life, what the cost is of doing those. And conversely, if you don't improve your life, what are the costs of not improving the life? And I think everybody who's involved in fitness has already made a commitment to making sure that their nutrition, their cardio, their RT training is up to speed, and that all of those things are doing really well. But a lot of people neglect some other things, such as self-care in the form of having a calm and non-judgmental approach to life, where you're mindful but not judging.
Right, I like it a lot.
Anyway, I think that that's something that we can see in the physical realm, but we really can't see in the sort of invisible world. But it's equally important if you want to have inner peace and calm.
You know, I think it's easy to make, to believe that and apply it to other people than to ourselves. So for example, if you've heard that, hey, listen, you want to enjoy the moment while at the same time planning for the future in regards to financial planning, putting away money into a 401k or a retirement plan, that makes perfectly good sense to the person who's doing it because they're doing it. But for the person who isn't doing it, you either have reasons why you can't do it. I don't have the resources to do it. I don't have the job that affords the opportunity to do it, or the kind of job that will. So it's easy to see that in yourself when it's something that you're already doing. But if it's something that you're not doing, you don't necessarily see it. So for example, we all know that staying away from sugary foods, a high cholesterol diet, while those foods can taste really good, that they're harmful for us long term. So in that case, there's no free lunch. I mean, one day down the road, sometimes it's not that distant down the road, you are going to pay for that lunch, so to speak. I think it's hard for us to look at ourselves when applying that adage. For me personally, I can definitely say that, with some examples from my life in which I didn't exactly, I believed it, but I didn't allow myself to really embrace it, especially when it came to me. One area would be relationships. In relationships, I dated a lot, and I wasn't always faithful in my relationships. And there is no free lunch. There's suffering that comes with that kind of behavior and those kind of choices, not only to the other person that you should be in a committed relationship with, but also to you. Like, there's a cost to you of a lack of integrity, of worrying all the time about, am I going to get caught? Those kinds of things, covering your tracks, all this behavior that if you're just honest from the outset, you don't have to, deal with the aftermath or all the suffering. So that's just one example. Again, my point is that it's easy to believe it and embrace it when it's something that you're already doing. Like for me, exercise, absolutely, I believe it's true. You don't work out, eat well now, you're gonna pay the price later. But when it comes to something that I don't want to believe or face, it's a whole lot difficult, but it still remains true.
That's still true. There are consequences for any kind of inaction that's unhealthy. In other words, if there's a call for you to do something, if there's a required discipline, a required buckling down, a required of going through the fire to resolve the issue, you have to do that. because there is no free lunch. There is no way you can avoid it without having more serious consequences. The only way through something is through it. And so what I was getting at is when we're dealing with circumstances that aren't so easy to see, like let's say fighting a terrible addiction, or let's say fighting something that involves anger, repeated anger and repeated stress, you have to do something to get outside of that habit in order for you to move on. And one of the things I was thinking about on the way down today was the idea that if there's no free lunch, everybody has to be accountable for everything they do, because people naturally tend to want to do less to get more. But the rule is the more you do, the more you get. It's not the less you do, the more you get.
Right.
Now that's not to say that there is smarter ways of doing things. It's to say that you have to have some level of commitment and some power associated with that level of commitment and some leverage over you to want to make that change so that the outcome for you is beneficial. Unfortunately, it doesn't look that way. We always are looking for the easy way out. Americans want a pill, for example. I don't know how many times you see on TV these diet pills. You can take stuff and you lose weight, never have to exercise. And people are interviewed, yeah, I hate exercising and I took this pill and I lost 10 pounds or something. I'm not sure it's true, but I'm also convinced that it's not long-lasting. And it applies across the board, though. It's not just exercise, it's everything. Let's talk about just work in your relationships. That's another example. If you don't put as much work or as much joy or as much giving and as much loving as you possibly can, then you're not going to get your maximum result out of it. And so when you're thinking of sort of like pulling back, I'm not going to be all in until the other person is all in. They've got to show me that, that my love is deserved. That's a bad angle, and you're in for a big fall.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And when you think about the relationship example and what you put into the relationship and to loving and honoring the other person, you have to first begin with yourself. What are you working on every single day in yourself so that you don't blame your partner if the relationship hits a bumpy road or there are some rough waters to surf. You don't blame them. You look at yourself and you continue to hold space, because at that moment they may not be conscious. They may be going through some thinking or some worry in their mind, just like you will at a different moment or have at a past moment. So compassion in a relationship is really key, but how do you get compassion? Practice it.
That's right.
You practice it. Everything that when you see people that are operating at a high level and you see a relationship that is not just Facebook perfect, but is really a strong relationship that you can look at it, you can see it during that couple's most difficult time and how they have each other's back, how they honor themselves, how they honor the other person. If you really look at that, and oftentimes you're not given the opportunity to really see what's really going on behind a relationship. You don't see the struggle that one or both members of that relationship are having along the way. But even during those struggles, if you're able to witness and observe that person working inside and battling their ego and wrestling it down to the ground to say, no, I am not going to project here. I'm not going to blame the other person. But they're putting in that work to really say, I'm just going to hold the space and be loving. I'm going to do what I have to do to bring my best to this relationship. I'm not going to let my ego or the stories about the past or fear of abandonment or distrust rob me or distract me from the important work of what I need to do for me first to be my best, which will empower me to give more to the relationship. They're putting in that work, and in that case, they didn't have a free lunch to get that relationship. They're doing what they need to do every single day, beginning with themselves, so that relationship is what it is.
Man, you're on fire.
Oh, thank you.
This is an important topic, and it's true though. I think that's an example that everybody loves about you, is that you walk the talk. There's no issue about discipline for you. You have absolutely the highest level of discipline commitment to fitness that I've ever seen, and to self-improvement that I've ever seen.
Right.
And that comes about by virtue of realizing that there's no easy way, there's no shortcut. Somebody said that the elevator to success is out of order, you have to take the stairs.
All the time.
It's kind of like that. It's with every aspect of your life. And I'd even get to the point where I think you could safely say that those things which come easiest often have the less amount of value. If you expect, for example, that you're always going to get something without putting something back, how does that enrich you? It's the doing. It's the doing. It's the processing. It's overcoming the obstacles that creates the kind of joy and success and confidence that you need to be a happy and fully functioning person. I also think this ties in with happiness in a very important way, and here's how. I don't think that people ought to be spending as much time as possible as we are in this country pursuing happiness. I think the pursuit of happiness is wrong. I know that sounds extreme, but here's what I'm getting at. Happiness is not something you can go out and catch. It's not something you can create a list for, and when you knock off these things on the list, now I'm happy. Or it's not something that you can achieve by buying your way into happiness, a big mansion, a BMW, a nice Mercedes, a beautiful wife. All of those things are surface things that aren't going to bring you happiness. The point is, happiness comes when you go through a disciplined life where you're not expecting a free lunch and you're rejecting the free lunches and doing the hard work to get where you need to be, where you want to be in your head, the kind of person that you've committed to yourself that you want to be. When you do those things, you're going to fight a lot of crap. You're going to fight a lot of battles. You're going to have a lot of difficulty. But you know what? When you get through those, that's when happiness comes. It ensues.
Absolutely.
You don't pursue it and it comes to you. It ensues after you're on this road of striving and living up to your highest ambitions and your highest lights.
I completely agree, and it's really, for me, and the one area that I have fallen short the most consistently in has been the relationship area, and I'm pleased that I'm on the path, you know, to really make that, to change that reality of what's happened in that area. And it's really started with me accepting that this is work, and it's going to require a lot of self-discipline. And I didn't think about, well, once I get to this point, you know, this will happen. I'm just like, where I am right now, this is the work. And I found the reward in just being on the path, just being on the journey. Every day, if something comes up that tells me to take a different, go in a different direction, take a different fork in the road, to stay focused and stay on the path that I'm on, because it's the one that really makes me happiest. You know, it's the one, as you said, it makes me happiest when I'm doing it, but I'm not pursuing happiness. All I'm doing is just doing the work. I'm just chopping wood, carrying water. That's all I'm doing every single day. And the same thing with exercise, you know, which you acknowledged me for. So thank you. In fitness, in the way that I eat, it has just really been, I'm just looking at this meal today. I'm not looking at, you know, 30 years from now when, or 40 or 50 years from now when, you know, this physical form is gone, and they're, you know, doing an autopsy, like, man, look at this guy's organs. Can you believe this? And by the way, when somebody gets a hold of these organs, they hit the jackpot. Let me tell you, because they are pristine, baby. I mean, I have been a good steward, but I'm not thinking about that with every meal. Instead, I mean, I'm not thinking about that, you know, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. I'm thinking about just this meal. Like, is it a healthy meal? You know, because I know the benefits of that will come without me having to be consumed with the outcome. And it served me well, you know, and if something changes, I will continue to eat this way regardless of the change, because it's not about the outcome, it's about the journey, it's about being on the path.
That's right, and let me give you an example of my own sense of realization of this in a tough way. When I was in law school, I wanted to quit like every other week. And the reason I wanted to quit was because it was hard. It was very difficult. I was spending a lot of time in the library. I don't think I got it as easily as my classmates did. I thought I was kind of stupid, and they made a mistake admitting me, and maybe I didn't have the intellectual horsepower to pull it off. And so every couple of weeks I had to talk myself out of this. Well, after a while, after the first year, I just sort of recognized this idea, this inner voice is going to come up and say you're not good enough. But I kept saying back to it, oh yeah, well let me show you.
Right.
And kept inching closer to my goal, overcoming what I could overcome. I still got C's, I still got, you know, grades that weren't particularly astonishing. But I got through it, and I got my degree, and I passed the bar. But the point is, every step of the way, I wanted an easy way out. I didn't want to have to do the work. I wanted to read the cliff notes of life. I wanted to read the cliff notes of the cases. I didn't want to do the work and pay the price, experience the pain of feeling stupid and not getting it. But I did it, and that made me very happy.
Oh, you know, when you put in the work, I mean, how gratifying is
Oh,
it?
man.
Really, it's just something to be so grateful for. When I went through, you know, challenging breakup, you know, you want to you want the free lunch, and part of the free lunch is avoiding, ignoring, blame shifting that it's your partner's fault for why the relationship didn't work out, or it's, you know, at best, you know, it's equal, you know, blame to go around. But the real work is working on yourself, that to say, okay, let me do an objective inventory about my contribution to the relationship not working out. Like, let me look at ways that I fell short of being my best. What am I going to do today that helps me do that? I mean, downing a bottle of wine, not going to do it. You know, overeating, not going to do it. Commiserating with friends,
Oh boy,
who are going to tell you,
oh, poor Keith, you got such a raw deal, baby. I don't know. How do you stand it?
That's
oh,
right.
Poor dear.
That's not going to do it either. I mean, it's like you said, I can go through the fire, and if I want the possibility or the chance to be at peace first and foremost, and maybe down in the distant, you know, future, a relationship that is more in keeping with the way that I'm living. If I want any chance of any of that, again, peace right now, I got to do the work. I got to work on me. And that lunch isn't free. That lunch is not free.
It is not free. And that, I think, ought to put everyone on notice for deciding what it is you really want out of life. I mean, if you make a commitment to be something like peaceful and encouraging and supportive, that is a tough road. That's a tough road. You got to make sure that's what you really want. Now, I think you should want it, because that brings inner peace and a sense of belonging. And love, I think, is the only currency that really matters in life anyway, and that brings you more love. So I can see that that goal would be worthy, but it's not easy. It's not like you can just sit back and say, okay, I'm all about love, and then live your life like a jerk and flip people off on the highway and not remember people's birthdays, or be helpful to a friend when they're in need, or to do things that are totally altruistic where you'll never get any credit for them. But those are the things, the kinds of things that you would do if you truly had a loving heart, and you have to overcome that notion that all I have to do is like 2 cents worth of this, and then I'll get $3 back in value. It never works on any level. And if it does, you're very lucky and you're about to fall.
That's right. So Rick, before we go, who do you listen to? What do you read that helps you be mindful that for the life you want to live, for you to be your best, that it's not a free lunch and you have got to do the work?
Oh man, there's so many great people out there who are writing about this very thing, especially now, because I think there's so much need for people to stop suffering, to go inside, to realize what's important, and to take that path, even though it may be tricky. Eckhart Tolle, of course, Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra,
oh yeah,
Shakti Gawain, Chakti, last word Gawein.
Show notes?
Show notes.
You put them in the show notes?
I'll put them in the show notes. She's a fantastic woman, deals a lot with women's issues, and she's terrific. And then Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a Vietnamese monk who has a monastery in France. I suppose those are my big ones. And then some of the older ones, Buddhists and Taoists tend to influence me the most, because they seem to have this constant state of equanimity. Nothing really kind of bothers them. You know, they get to the point where whatever shows up I can deal with, and I'm not too worried about it. And I'm here right now with myself, and that's all I need to be happy.
I love that.
I love that too.
I know. That's it.
I love you, buddy.
I love you too, Rick. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, man. Great show.